Like our content and want to help support us create more and better content? You can now support us on Patreon at Solitaire the Gathering on patreon.com. Hello, and welcome back to the Solitaire the Gathering podcast. I am Riker, also known as Dredge the Bed on the internet. I'm joined by my wonderful co-hosts, Sam and Robert. Fortunately, Sharif couldn't join us today, but he should be back on our next episode. So, just three of us today, and let's pass it around to my co-host. I'm joining you guys from the United States, and let's go ahead and start with Bob.
Hello, I'm Robert, also going by Bob49 on Magic Online. I'm tuning in from Austria, and I'm ready to talk some Serum Powder and maybe Belcher.
Maybe Belcher, okay. Hi guys, nice to meet you again. Sam from Argentina here, also known as Ashanti in MTGO. And yeah, let's have a great time all together.
All right, guys, so we are back. This episode is coming out a little late. We apologize for that, but let's go ahead and start with, as Bob mentioned, Powder. We talked a lot about Powder on our last episode. We were uncertain of it, but we were testing it. And in the changes we have seen with Powder, a big one to start us off is one of our Discord members, Jamin, ran a lot of statistics on Powder, showing us some positive upticks in percentage consistency rates. And in practice, it may not feel like it, but I just want to pass this off to you guys. And what do you think about Powder so far?
Mm-hmm. So, in general, it has been positive. It's not always good. We know it's a bad top deck, and so there are certain situations where you feel like it's lowering your win percentage, but then again, there are also a lot of situations where it's good, where you powder a hand and you wouldn't have won the game otherwise because you would have mulliganed to death otherwise. So there are certainly pros and cons, and during play practice, it's very hard to evaluate this. So it's very useful to have some mathematics on this to show us that while goldfishing, it definitely improves our win rate. Something you have to consider, though, is that goldfishing is not the only thing that matters, because it might certainly be that you lose percentage points by having less interaction in your deck, or just because you have a couple more dead cards. This means that if your opponent does interact with you, you lose more percentage points than if the Serum Powder was a land, for example. So it's still a little difficult to evaluate. These statistics do help us. They further indicate that Serum Powder is probably the way to go.
So as I said, Sam, because Sam was the biggest supporter of Serum Powder anywhere he's been. Serum Powder is the truth, this man is saying, wherever he goes. And is it still the truth?
So, just in my opinion, of course, guys, because let's remember something, and I mentioned it in the Discord, but I think it's really fair enough to say it. Serum Powder is a flexboard card, right? So if you want to play it, go ahead. Personally, I love it. I have a lot of success with it. It's, as Bob mentioned, not the best card as a top deck. It still works as a top deck card because you can use it as a ram spell. But of course, it's not the greatest thing that we can do. In my opinion, what I tried to optimize with it was my game one, and having this in mind, it considerably improved my game one. Even if I powder, let's say, Reforge the Soul or one of the turn 3 package in order to do a two land pile combo, it's still very, very good. So yeah, I basically really enjoy it, and I invite everybody to also have a tryout with it, because when you really not try it out, normally like people reject the card just because CM Power is not being played a lot. I get that, because until we have played it by ourselves, we had the same sensations. Having that said, and now that I played a lot of leagues, uh, I think it's really, really good.
Having the math,
Yeah.
definitely.
Something you mentioned is that it is a flex spot. It doesn't necessarily have to be depending how you build your deck, because there have been lists that play 4 Serum Powder and cut lands for it, and there you cannot just simply cut Serum Powder because you will not have enough lands after boarding. On the other hand, there's also approaches where you cut Ironcrag Feats or Pact of Negations, where you very much can cut Serum Powders post-board. And there it acts more like a flex card. So depending on what you cut for your Serum Powder also influences how you need to treat Serum Powder during sideboarding.
Yeah, perfect. What you said, Bob, I totally agree. I have been playing different. I always want to be on 4 Serum Powder, because my intention is to extract the most advantage from the card. So I did, let's say, stupid things, going down to 22 lands, playing 4 Serum Powder. Right now, I'm playing 24 lands, and I cut Pact of Negation, which normally people would say don't do it. I understand that, and I also cut an Ironcrag feat. So now I'm down to 2, but this gave me the room to have more lands than before, and still have the Serum Powders available. So yeah, that's what I'm right now doing.
Mm-hmm. So I'm generally cautious about changes, and I'm also cautious about Serum Powder. I started out with just 1 copy, replacing my March of Reckless Joy. I have since moved up to 3 copies, cutting my 25th land and the 4th Pact of Negation, which is quite unusual because I usually quite liked my Pact of Negation. But I think it has worked out well so far. And I agree with Sam that maybe cutting Pact of Negations or the 3rd Ironcrag feat for the 3rd or 4th Serum Powder might be worth it.
An update to Powder, since we have me and Sam here. We did test Powder in Oops All Spells, and I thought there would have been a very positive feedback from playing Powder in a deck that mulligans and mulligans and mulligans till it has a win. But unfortunately, and Sam can most likely agree with me here, Powder, if you powder, you can exile way too many important pieces. The Oops package is very large, and if you take away even just 1 or 2 of the pieces, it can become very fragile and not even work at all. So I don't advise putting Powder in Oops, but we still have positive records with Oops recently. I know Sam has a couple 4-1s and 5-0s with it from the last few weeks.
I took it out. It's really not good like in Belcher. In Belcher, you have to have the possibility to powder your first 7. And normally this in Oops is not possible, because there are cards that are crucial for your combo when you're going off. So I really recommend you not to play Serum Powder, at least in Oops All Spells. It gets better when you are like on move 5. When I played Serum Powder and Oops in this specific moments, but if you're not able to powder your first 7, then it's actually already something that you're losing, because you are drawing the same amount of cards. So that's the main problem with Serum Powder. Just to remember the ability that when we are going to use it.
So we've covered Powder again. Positive things on the Belcher front, negative things on the Oops front. Do try it out for yourself, see what you think. At this point, Powder just feels like what you're looking for in your flex spots. If you want more consistency, Powder's the way to go. If you want to attack certain decks, maybe some other options would be better for your list.
Does seem like the answer for what to play in the 59th and 60th slot in the deck.
Mm-hmm. With that being said, I believe Bob had a couple of spoilers from Dominaria that he wanted to bring up and mention how we have to interact with these strategies.
Yes, so there is 2 cards that I want to talk about. There is one for Merfolk and one for many decks. So the first card we'll talk about is called Vodalian Hexcatcher. It's a Merfolk and a 1/1 for 2 mana. That's 1 and a blue. It has flash, and it says other Merfolk you control get +1/+1, and sacrifice a Merfolk, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. So this obviously goes into Merfolk. It's a very good card there, and it will probably mean that more people will play Merfolk as before. And it's also very relevant in the matchup for Merfolk against Belcher, because previously they had to rely on Force of Negation or Counterspell to interact with us. But now not only do they have an extra card to interact with us, but it's also a card that we cannot easily Pact of Negation, because they stick it before we can cast our relevant cards. And it's something that is generally that they can use multiple times to counter our spells. So it will be very hard to play around this, and unless you have Fury, I think you're in a very tough spot if your opponent has this. So it will make our matchup against Merfolk worse. Does anyone else have any input on this?
Yeah, like something that makes it really, really good, this new Merfolk, is of course the flash, because you might be with the intention to Fury the creatures, and then in response they don't need to like sack it in response, because they just play it in a flash, and now they're all like pumped up, and that's something like hard to interact, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can jump in on this one. I just want to mention, Merfolk isn't a very common deck. You won't see it everywhere.
But this might change.
But this Merfolk might change it. Where I do kind of draw the line here is Merfolk get a new creature lord from a lot of sets all the time, and they make a bounce back, so look out for a decent amount of Merfolk for, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks, but I do expect Merfolk to fade away again. This happened with Morelion, the 3-mana lord. It happens with a lot of stuff they get, and that's just the history of Merfolk, right? They get so many things that just don't push them over the edge. I don't think this is a Merfolk that will do that for them, but that's my opinion. I can be proven wrong. We'll see how Merfolk plays out. But just Merfolk's always been a little difficult for combo decks in general. Their one-time interaction of points do really help them win those matchups. But the other card we wanted to talk about, was it the other lord?
The other relevant card is called Leyline Binding. It's 5 and a white for an enchantment. It has flash, and it says Domain. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each basic land type among lands you control. And when Leyline Binding enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Leyline Binding leaves the battlefield. So this card is not something that completely obliterates us. It's more so relevant because there are many decks that might potentially play it. We can start out with 4-color, because it obviously has a very easy time to support this card, where they can easily cast it for 2 mana on turn 2, and there's even an option where they splash a 5th color over through a Triome to cast it for 1. But this isn't the most relevant part. It can also be played in blue-white control, splashing. Or they already splashed 2 colors for their prismatic endings, and now they could also splash those same colors for this card. And there are other decks that can take advantage of the fact that it costs 6 mana, so it's not less than 3 mana. So decks like Rhinos could easily splash a 4th color to have this on turn 2 to deal with interaction, and maybe even Living End could use it. For us, it's obviously problematic because it's an instant speed interaction for a Belcher, so they could use it in a way where they interact with our Belcher, we pack this, and then they untap, and then they have their sorcery speed interaction, like, for example, at the Fairy. And so it's not inherently very bad for us, but it makes the remaining cards of their deck more efficient versus us, because it's just another thing we have to deal with.
I did want to mention for this card, Leyline Binding, I think this card is a home run of a design. It doesn't push power creep like other cards we've seen in the past, but I think it's very powerful for what it does. I'm a big fan of this card.
It's interesting for sure.
It's definitely not a Boseiju, right? But
Thank God.
No, it's not a Boseiju, but it's really good. I think it's really well designed, as Riker mentioned. It escapes from prismatic ending, right, or other things that normally like people already have in the meta. In my opinion, it will be replayed, and like people will try to play it a lot. Doomwake posted in his Twitter 2 different lists of rhinos with this new card. It will be played, or it will be also tried out. And what we were discussing before, in Living End, it's kind of hard. I agree with Bob what he said, that triumphs are not really friendly in Living End, so that's totally understandable. But other Cascade spells, which could be Glimpse, this could be also be played in this archetype. I don't know, guys, if you see or identify another deck. Maybe in some control, like traditional control, could also play Binding without a problem. I think like UV or Esper control. I think like Esper could also be something with this new card.
And there's of course the domain decks like Domain Zoo, for which it's a home run, but those are not the very popular decks.
Yeah, exactly.
We mentioned Boseiju, and this brings up a thought with me. If Foresty decks do start playing Binding, do you think they'll be playing less copies of like their Boseijus and their Sokenzas?
No, because okay, I see your point. Originally I thought no, because Boseiju is free, but it's not free because your Leyline Bindings don't get reduced then. Maybe, but I think they would still play a fair amount of Boseijus. Maybe they wouldn't play less of them post-board, because right now there are lists that play 1 to 2 main deck, and then they fill up to a playset, or at least 3 copies from the sideboard. Maybe they won't do that anymore.
I was thinking actually the same thing. If Binding will be played a lot, there might be more Boseijus in the meta, and that would be like really, really bad for us. We don't know. Right now, people are trying to find new cards, and in the leagues that I am playing on Magic Online, it's when new sets are coming out, it's a lottery, it's a casino. Every match is super random. People are trying out a lot of different things, but we will see.
Luckily for us, the odds are in our favor whenever that happens, though, because when people try new things, Belcher just does its thing and just wins. It's always a great time to play most combo decks when a new set releases, because people are trying to figure out what they want to do, what will make this work. But as a combo player, just why make new things work when we already know what works extremely well?
And those people get to try against the old and tested decks, as in Belcher.
I do want to mention there's nothing from Dominaria that we want in Belcher. I haven't seen anything. I don't know if you guys seen anything that's worth testing.
I thought we would have like something interesting, an artifact or something, a mana rock. I don't know. I was really hoping something.
Well, no, we'll get those in our next set when we get a Brothers War. Yes. Brothers War is going to be an Artificer set.
Yes. It will be the Belcher's
It's
War.
the 2022 version. Belcher's War. It's the 2022 version of Antiquities. We'll see if we get anything exciting for Belcher from there. I don't know. I wouldn't mind Soul Ring for Oops All Spells, but Soul Ring's probably way too good for.
What are you talking?
Modern.
No. Okay, what card could we have that would be real?
Xanthid Swarm.
Uh-huh.
I want Xanthid Swarm in Modern. I've been
Want
saying
to
this for months.
transmogrify for non-land permanent. Actually, for any permanence, I take it.
So you turn your land into
A Belcher, yes. Into our only permanent.
that'd be such a niche design
I'd
space
love
with
it.
that card. Hey, you can't tell me you wouldn't love Xanthid Swarm.
I would be
Modern.
totally, yeah, I would cheer up this also. We have this hope of, I don't know what, yeah.
Hope of Girifer.
It's not
It's not the same. For those who are not familiar with Xanthid Swarm is a 1 green 01 insect that has flying, and it says whenever it attacks, your opponents can't cast spells for the rest of the turn. So it's a silence on a body, which is just great. And that'd be so good for Belcher because we would force our opponents to leave in removal, and that's already bad against us. It's just, I'm never getting Xanthid Swarm, but I'm going to be an advocate for that card till the
I
day
would
I
love
die.
to see it.
I don't think they will print it,
No.
but it would be fun.
I know they'll just
Hey,
print
if
more
they printed
blue
the
counter
best
magic.
planeswalker of all time, Lily, right? Back in standard, why not?
Yeah, Lily is in standard. Well, anything else we wanted to mention about spoilers or cards we want, and we'll just keep being upset until we get them.
Now, let's talk about the new combo decks. Well, they're not super new, but
Well, yeah, they're not new. They've been running around. And,
They are more relevant than
let's
they
start
have
off
been before.
yeah.
Let's start off with the Energy Series 5K winner, Jessie Robkin, who we featured on this podcast before. If you haven't, go ahead and take a look at that episode of Not So Solitaire. She was great to have on. She's a great player, and she just established that by winning this 5K tournament with none other than Jeskai through the
Underworld Breach, right?
We've talked a lot about Breach. Breach is Through the Breach is a card that lets all you recast any spell in your graveyard with Escape
So we're
3.
talking about Underworld Breach.
Yes.
Yeah, not Through the Breach. Underworld Breach. You know I was.
Yes.
There's too many breaches that do degenerate things.
Yeah. It's
I'm
the
sorry.
breach in the meta.
Underworld Breach. Jeskai Underworld Breach. But it does, like I said, it's a 2-mana enchantment that gives all of your cards in your graveyard Escape 3. So it can win as a combo deck, but it also is a Ragavan deck that plays Urza Saga. It can win that way. It can grind. Has a lot of game plans, and as a combo deck, this is really exciting to have this many options. I haven't played enough Breach to really give my say on it personally, but from what you guys have seen, do you think Breach is a legit deck that you could be playing at tier 1 level?
I think it's legitimate, but it seems very hard to both play and play against. There are so many plans. You can play aggro with Ragavan, you can combo out with Grinding Station Breach, you can grind with Urza Saga. You occasionally have the wins where you play Breach and board your opponent 4 times. It's so complicated, and you need to know which of the wins you need to go for. There's, of course, the part that as an opponent, you need to know which of the wins your opponent is going for if they are playing Breach. It's very difficult, it has very many angles, but if you can pilot it well, and apparently Jessie can, then I think you have a big edge against the meta.
Yeah. When I remember the episode that we had with Jessie, it was really interesting to see, like Bob mentioned so many different angles, and I don't know how many decks right now in Modern have so many different angles from where you can attack your opponent. And additionally to that, any deck that can play Teferi and Prismatic Ending and other like removal stuff that can, perhaps in the middle game or in the late game, help you to achieve the main goal of the deck, which is winning with Thassa Oracle, is super interesting for me. It's not like, okay, opponent has a Tormod Crypt or has Relic, and it's game over. Not at all. Like, I can go aggro, as Bob mentioned. I can go however and keep on working with you until I achieve what I really want to do. It's super cool.
The closest to a hate card against it is Stony Silence, where they can only do very few things against once it sticks. They still have their aggro plan. They can kind of grind with Urza Saga tokens, but that's the one card I have found that that hinders them quite a bit.
Okay. The question here for me perhaps is, who's playing Stony Silence, right? Like, that's
no one plays.
It's not really popular sideboard card.
Reanimator plays it. That's about it.
Emir certainly doesn't play it.
Okay, that's good to know, Bob.
Reanimator does, but I would recommend picking up Breach if you are looking to play a combo deck with, a lot of moving parts that performs well and can be somewhat demanding of you. I know that's why we like Belcher, is Belcher having recross the paths opens up a lot of lines that I enjoy personally playing. Breach can also do the same, where it's not like a recross or like Gift Storm, but it has to find wins in its own way compared to a lot of other combo decks. But Breach is also a very expensive deck, so unless you have the wallet for it and you want to drop $1,300 on this deck...
On the upside, no evocable elementals, so...
Yeah, no evoke elementals. Anything else we want to mention about Breach? Congrats to Jesse for winning that event.
It seems like a fun deck.
Another deck that we've been seeing run around, and it's everywhere. It's at my LGS. It's at another LGS around here. It's on Moto. It's everywhere, and that is Indomitable Creativity.
It's the scourge of modern, unlike Murktide or Mercy.
I feel like this deck has been around for ever since MH2. Yeah. It's just never gotten big. I remember playing Grixis Creativity back late last year, and there was one Moto player that's all they played. Mm-hmm. And it's finally picked up, and I think Fable did help push it over the top.
Yes.
Fable of the Mirror Breaker does so much for that.
That is the card that pushed it into being very good. It already had some prominence with the 4-color version with Ceres Emissary and Emrakul, but now it's both much better than it used to be with Fable, and there's a lot more experimentation going on with it, because now they can also do it with Archons, they can also do it with Primeval Titans, and it seems like Archon is becoming the standard way to play this. But even then, there's variations where you play it as a pseudo-reanimate deck, where you also have Persist and Tainted Indulgence, and then you play it as a Grixis deck, or you can still play it as a 4-color deck with Ren 6 and Fairies. I also still see some people playing a Rug version with Primeval Titans as a payoff, but it's becoming less and less common.
I don't know if this will make sense to you guys when I say this, but Fable took Grixis from being a Saheeli combo power level deck to being up there in tier 1.
I agree.
It's a very similar thing where you're trying to do one thing. I
understand it, but I think it was already better than that before that. And now it's genuinely just a tier 1 deck. You should expect to see it if you go to a tournament.
And that's what I like about Fable, is that Fable is just not great in almost any other deck you put it in. But Fable adds so much to the game plan.
I don't necessarily agree. Fable is just a good card. You play it in Mono Red, you play it in Rakdos. It's just...
A glimpse Cascade, it does a lot of things also.
Glimpse can cast it. Rakdos, it's up in the air. It depends on what's in your 3
but I think
slots.
Fable is just, it's a Tarmogoyf. It's just good. You play it and you're happy, mostly, no matter the situation.
I don't think anybody's been happy with playing a Tarmogoyf for the last few years.
I can't remember another deck. But also, yeah, Fable, I think it does a lot of things. Also, not necessarily combo deck, but the Rakdos scam deck plays it also a lot. Like it's been very very versatile for a lot of things. But getting back to creativity, I was talking to Markaiser, and I was like, why the deck is favored when it's playing against 4C? Because one of the main things is that creativity is favored when it's playing against 4C. It's just works slow and it tries to grind. Normally, which is the best grind deck? You guys can respond if you want to, but when we like normally play against 4C, we all know like, okay, if it's going to go to turn, I don't know, 7 or 8.
4C, if I'm playing versus 4C with Belcher and the game goes past turn 5,
Yeah,
I probably lost.
Exactly. But there's like this creativity has the moment where you can like just wait and go on.
Yeah. Archon is a great card versus 4C. If they don't have a Solitude and they don't have a creature fodder to ferry, Archon will just win.
There's also the aspect that they, against 4C, they will generally wait for very long and have multiple Archons at once. If they're playing the 4-color version with the fairy, then they might do it with the fairy in the end step, and then they just straight up win. Otherwise, even if they do it in their main phase and you as a 4C player solitude their Archons, maybe with Ephemerate, even then they gain so much value from those ETBs that it might just win them the game.
Yeah. I have seen it on stream. I can't remember a player like just putting his fetchlands on board, not cracking them at all, like 4 turns playing against like 4C, then separately bringing back those tokens. This
Dwarven Mine. Turn them all into Dwarven Mine.
Turned it all together. It was like, wow, very interesting.
I don't think creativity is going anywhere. There's so much hype around the deck still too. The deck's innovating and trying different things. It's also a very popular deck. I've played creativity.
The hype might go away, but the hype is justified. It's a genuinely good deck.
It's a good deck. It's fun to play. It, scratches the combo itch of I did my thing. Good luck, opponent.
Mm-hmm.
It's an enjoyable deck. I do recommend it too, and there's so many different versions you can build with it. You have Grixis, you have 4C, you have just straight Izzet builds. Those ones aren't as good, arguably, but there's all sorts of things you can do with this list. And if you hate 4C and just want something to beat it that's not Belcher, you can play creativity. Any other decks we want to mention, or anything to go into about creativity? All right, let's go along. A topic I wanted us to talk about is what have we been playing? It's been a while since we've last sat down and talked, and what decks have we been playing? I'm going to start with Sam because Sam has a list.
Oh, yeah, I haven't played a lot of things. So okay, I have been playing not with a lot of success because I need some lessons from Riker because he stretched it well, of course. I have been trying out some dredge. As a really, recent player from Dredge, and I already know it's not the best moment. Dredge is not necessary for me, in my opinion. The best graveyard deck is Upsalsfels, but just because I'm the Upsalsfels player, I think it's much more explosive. But I still think from this small experience, 4C has a lot of promise to play against Dredge, and that's something that I really enjoyed. So I hate 4C. That was my main goal to play Dredge, and I had really positive results when I was playing against it. I also had some arguments when I was playing against Murktide, but from what Riker was telling me, for sure the Murktide player wasn't really good because they were not mulling like really strongly for the Graveyard Hate. They were like, playing unlicensed Hearse or something like that. Yeah, Hearse. Okay,
Hearse.
But it wasn't really good when they brought it in the mid game, and I was really way far ahead of them.
Yeah. To build on Dredge, I don't think you should play Dredge. It's not the best it's probably the worst of all the graveyard decks you could be playing. But if the meta doesn't expect a graveyard deck, Dredge can just run through it. 4C doesn't have a lot of solid graveyard answers. Murktide has Hearse, and if they don't mulligan for Hearse, then you can run over them. The only issue is that Living End screams play Graveyard Hate in your sideboard, and Dredge gets hit by that as well.
Yeah. I was playing... Okay, so that's to Dredge. I was playing Hollow Wine. That's...
The red-green version?
No, the red-green version.
Red-green. Oh, this is... You were talking to the madman Dylan MTG about this.
It's so freaking crazy casino deck, like, even more, but it was really enjoyable to play. On turn 2, have 2 Vengevine and Hollow Wine and start to have this big board. So it was more fun, but I really enjoyed to play it. It's like Burning Inquiry and this Goblin Lore are super casino cards. It can go really, really good or super, super bad. A lot of times I felt I was playing like tier 0 deck, and then 3 matches afterwards you're like on a tier 15 deck playing because it's it's super like just luck and go. I have been playing again this Lotus Field deck, this one land Lotus Field. Ryan Cook he posted a video with some tweaks and changes. Right now I'm like twice 4-1 with the deck. I still want to have the 5-0 so I can post it again in the list, but it's really interesting. It's really nice. It's even more Doomsday than Belcher in some kind of way.
It looks like a really fun deck, and to give some clarity to what this deck is it's a 1-land Lotus Field combo deck where you play a bunch of modal flip cards and 1 single copy of Lotus Field. And then you also have things like Abundant Growth, which will only find you Lotus Field, or Recross the Paths. Now bear with me. Recross the Paths, which will find the Lotus Field, and then anytime you cast it after, it stacks the deck. It's a big thing. It's a Storm deck at its heart, casting a lot of spells, doing a lot of things. There's a few moving parts. It's hard to interact with. It looks like a lot of fun. I don't know if it's super, super solid yet, but I need to give it a whirl as well.
We definitely need to try it out. We cut Past in Flames because Balaget does basically the same thing. With Balaget Recovery, we pick up the Grave Shot and we hit it again. So it was really, really cool to play it. I really enjoyed it. I played a league with Ad Nauseam, went 2-3. It's really hard. It's not something that you want to play right now. But
rest in peace, Ad Nauseam. I will miss you.
I want to play it again. So yeah.
I'm like that with Cabal Coffers. I want to play it even though I just lose. And for Bob, let me guess. You've been playing...
That's a hard one, eh?
What?
Myriad Control.
Yes, I have. Yeah, in Myriad Control just got a new card with Serra Paragon. Or at least we are testing it, and it does seem pretty good. It's basically...
It scares me that you said we.
Yes.
We are testing
Me, Bob, and 49. All of us.
The alter ego of Bob.
Yeah. we're testing different versions. Like one is playing Sun Titans, the other plays for Serra Paragon. I'm playing a mix. It does seem good. It's a sort of a Crucible effect on a stick. And Crucible is really good in the deck. Unfortunately, Crucible of Words itself is no longer a card that's good enough in Modern, but Emeria Control used to play that card, so that should show you that such an effect is asked for in this deck, and having such an effect that's actually a Modern playable card might be good enough. Other than that, it's also just a card that has a lot of late game potential. So we'll see if it's good enough.
Okay, so we hear Bob trying to get more people to play Emeria. Is there anything else you've been playing? Or is it just grindy deck?
Yes, I also played Belcher, of course. That's about it, I think.
You were promoting more Emeria than Belcher?
I think we talked about Belcher for roughly 30 minutes now, so I think I could mention Emeria for a couple minutes.
Okay. I have something that some spies were telling me that they faced you on Modo, and they were thinking like, okay, I'm going to move for certain hands because he's for sure playing non-creature deck, and you were facing them with Hammer Time. Say the truth, Bob.
I played that a couple weeks ago. It was pretty fun. Hammer seems like a good deck. I heard you can win more games if you play a good deck, and that surprised me a little bit, but it seems like that's the truth.
That explains how you lost to a Bitter Blossom and Urza.
I heard if you play good decks, you win more.
Yes, Green Black Rock, good deck. You heard it here first, folks.
Sure. Okay, okay. Can you give me some more details about the experience of Hammer Time? I personally only played it when I was with this all access tickets that Modo sometimes bring it up. But if you can give me some difference between.
So currently it's a little hard to understand you. So I assumed you asked about some generic. How is it to play Hammer? Hammer is very different to Belcher. You're looking for very different you're looking to face very different cards. Usually, when you play Belcher, you don't care about Solitudes, you don't care about the removal spells, you only care about the counter spells, the discard spells, while if you play Hammer, it's the other way around. Counter spells don't really matter, discard spells are occasionally annoying, but not really, while on the other hand, what you're really afraid of is the Solitude, the Unholy Heat, and that's just a very different experience. On the other hand, you still get to go with a pseudo combo approach where you just double hammer your Ornithopter and then you're happy. And on the other hand, you also have your grindy starts with Urza's Saga. It's very different to Belcher, while also sort of a combo deck. So that's very interesting.
So it's a fair deck.
I played a little bit of Hammer as well.
It's like Infect. It's an aggro combo deck where you're aggro-y, but sometimes it feels like you're playing combo. Just like Amulet is ramp, but sometimes it feels like you're playing combo.
Yeah, Hammer felt like that when I played it. I played Hammer because I needed ticks. And so I just, ran it through a couple 4-1s. The deck will win very fast against combo deck and all sorts of decks. If you don't have important interaction, Hammer will run over the top of you. Anything else you want to talk about Hammer, or are we going to go over my list of things that I've been doing?
Go ahead, Riker. I really want to listen.
All right, here we go. So I can start with, I've been still playing a lot of Belcher. I went to a modern local 1K and I got second place. It was a great event. I enjoyed being there. 3 of my matches were featured, including the finals match. Lost to 4C. They had double Beseiju and Meddling Mage, and I'd mulled the 5, and I'd probably not made the best recross decision in Game 2. But I was happy with my results. It was a fun event. The following week after, I played at a Pioneer 1K, and I know I've been talking about how much I dislike Pioneer. And that's still true. I don't like Pioneer. I don't... I still don't like playing Pioneer
Why?
all that much.
The question is why you don't like it, Pioneer.
Because Pioneer doesn't offer me a combo deck.
I recommend. Okay, no.
I don't like Lotus Field. I don't like Lotus Field. I like Jeskai Ascendancy in Pioneer, but it's not a good deck.
Okay.
And so the deck that I went to this 1K with was Mono Blue Spirits, which and all I played it because it was very reminiscent of the only standard deck I've enjoyed, which was Mono Blue Tempo from Ixalan Standard, where you just put Curious Obsession on a hard to block creature and just turn it into a draw engine. This deck does a lot of that, and I got top 8 at this event too, which felt gross. I got top 8 with a Pioneer deck. Didn't feel normal to me. Which was a fine event. I didn't.
So you might not have expected because you played the Pioneer deck, but what you didn't think about is your opponents are also playing Pioneer decks, so this kind of balances it out again.
I know we're all not having a great.
I have a question. So, in this Pioneer tournament, in your top 8, was there any combo deck top 8ing? Like,
there was no combo decks that registered at the event.
Haven't registered? Wow, that's a lot.
No registered. Well, unless you consider mono green. We have mono green, but that's more of like a drawn deck. It can win and is a combo deck, but there was 2 mono greens that were pseudo combo, but that was it. There's not a lot of combo in Pioneer. I don't know of any local Lotus Field players. It's not very popular around here.
Like, I think that Lotus Field and Jeskai Ascendancy, they have like the same mechanism of solitaire feeling. Like, I don't understand why you don't like it.
They do. Well, Lotus Field feels very unnatural for me to play it because I played a lot of it in Modern, and having to wrap my head around you need 2 copies of Lotus Field to actually win the game is very difficult for me because you just sit there and do nothing. You can win with 1, but it's very difficult. You need 2 to solidify a win, and that just felt very unnatural to me. And besides, you're not doing anything
but
for the first 3
for the modern version as
besides setting up your combo.
And for Belcher.
It's true for the modern version. Belcher's... I like Belcher because, I can just go, here's a Belcher, I win, or I can stack my deck. It's a different feeling.
But it's true for Lotus Field as well. Here's an emergent
I tried. That's... you have to assemble A, B, C, and D before you get there, but yeah.
It's fine. I just want to make it some, like, the questions, because from my side, a guy that doesn't play Pioneer at all, with the only intention to make work Oops All Spells in a perfect world will never happen, so I will never play Pioneer. I was like just trying to ask.
Well, it's because they banned the spies. Oops All Spells was too good in Pioneer.
Yeah, it was too good. But it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, you already tasted the forbidden fruit in Pioneer.
I can say it was a relief to go back and play Modern again after Pioneer. I don't plan on playing Pioneer events unless they're big tournament events. It's just to stay relevant at this point because it's the Pro Tour format and you kind of just have to. But in my pursuit of learning how to play Pioneer, I've been playing a bunch of Commander and Limited. I have been going around the block, and I've been loving Commander.
I have talked a lot about our mono green decks. Both of us do like making a lot of mana, and then potentially casting Genesis Wave or doing other things. Riker still has to learn the way of not killing himself with Genesis Wave, but I'm sure he will learn one day.
I went too deep in one of my games. on turn 5, I cast a it was a Rishkar's expertise, targeting where with my Omnath in play, and my Omnath had 69 power. Drew 69 cards, had a bunch of mana, and I had 17 cards left in deck, and I was like, oh, I can cast a Genesis Wave and put my whole deck in play. So I did that, and then I died to decking from the Great Henge, which makes me draw a card.
Oh my gosh.
It was so fun, though. I never thought I'd do stuff like this in Magic, so I do enjoy Commander for these little things.
A similar issue I sometimes encounter is casting the Great Aurora when you have already 60 tokens in play. And then you shuffle everything back and draw 60 extra cards, but maybe you have already too many permanents, and then you draw your entire deck.
That's good.
Oh man, Sam hates this. Sam hates this.
It's hard for me to listen, but if you guys are having a good time, that's totally fine. Like, I haven't been playing Commander because I don't like Commander, but I did play until yesterday, like 20 leagues of Cube in Moto. It was the best feeling of my life. I really love Cube. I really enjoy it all the time.
So, to scratch my modern itch, I've enjoyed 1v1 Commander a lot more than I have the 4-player Commander.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course, you can play.
Yeah, I know, I understand, but I don't have the difference. I don't know which is the difference between those. Like,
the difference is that you're not playing with 3 other people.
like Commander with 4, it's like just it's a table game, right?
Yeah,
it's like a table game for me.
Yeah,
it's a board game, correct?
It's a board game, and I appreciate Magic giving us so many different options of different ways to play, like limited, and you playing Cube. I could not. That's too much Cube.
And I this time I had some goals, like not forcing combo decks because normally I was always doing so. I played mono green, like white wheaties, like different things, and I really enjoyed it, and I had much better results now that I was more open to certain archetypes. So that was really something cool. So,
not just
reanimator, correct? Not just only brain freeze my opponent with storm, trying to storm, etc. But yes, it was really cool.
So we've been around playing a lot of things. I know Bob is still planning on just wrecking his friends with his Azusa Commander deck.
But I also played Mono Green in Vintage Cube quite a bit. I'm starting to learn other decks, so I think I can properly draft the Cube by now. But when I started out, I only drafted Mono Red or Mono Green. And it works.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they are decks that usually aren't drafted a lot because they are not that good. But if you get a lot of the cards for it, then they are quite decent still. They are good at doing their thing reasonably often, while many combo decks just aren't that consistent.
My issue is I'm always stuck in whenever I draft or seal. I always make a Jund creature removal deck. That's always what I end up doing, which generally is successful. You just destroy everything your opponent plays and then play a finisher. And
it's a decent plan, unless you're playing Vintage Cube and your opponent wins without creatures.
That's unfortunate. I haven't played too much Vintage Cube, but we have the new Dominaria, all the stuff we can do with that. But I think we've bored our listeners enough about all these other formats that are not doing combo-tastic, exciting stuff. Circling back as we're kind of nearing the end here. Still a lot of success with Belcher. I do enjoy playing it in paper. Nothing too hot to cover on
I
Or
have played it quite a bit
decks
in
at
paper,
home,
and I
yeah.
have to say, for me, it works much better in paper than it works online. I'm not sure why. One would expect that the people eventually figure out how to play against Belcher or start playing more sideboard cards against it, but it seems like they do not, and so I keep winning.
I get that. I'm very successful at my paper events with Belcher. Once you've learned how to pilot Belcher very efficiently, like we have, you can just roll any
Yes,
most
but
paper event.
hopefully our
take the
listeners
list
will
of.
all soon join us and roll people in paper.
Oh yeah, my LGS
I have
has
yet to
5
encounter
Belcher
another
players.
one.
It's one of the Belcher players in my LGS did qualify at an RCQ for DreamHack here in the United States with Belcher. That was some exciting stuff. I don't have anything else left to say, and I think we've covered all we wanted to cover. I'm gonna pass it around. I'll go ahead and start with me. I'm Riker, also known as Dredge the Vet on the internet. If you stuck around this long, thank you. We love having you come in and listen to our podcast.
All right, keep on benching or Emiriaing. That's also good with me, but the others might not like it as much.
It does look like Sam had to run, so we will say goodbye for him. That is Sam. Also
Goodbye, I'm Sam.
Be sure to, check us out on Discord or our Twitch streams if you want to, get in contact with us in other ways. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for our next Not So Solitaire coming out later this month.